Welcome to the Fantasy Syndicate Podcast with your hosts, Joshua Poniatowski and Alex Taylor. Let's talk football.
Hello, and welcome to the Fantasy Syndicate Podcast. My name is Joshua Poniatowski. With me, co-host and friend, Alex Taylor. What's going on?
What up?
Week 13 wrapped up. We're going to cover all the things you need to know, steal your championship. But before we do that, I'm going to get on my soapbox here for a moment, Alex. I'm not sure if many of you know this, but I am a teacher at a local college. And right now, the fantasy season...
I know, you know.
I know what this guy teaches young and educates our youth. The fantasy football season, for many of us, is measuring our success based on if we made the playoffs or not. However, as a fantasy manager, you need to focus on the process and not the outcome. You need to continue to make waiver moves, add defenses, make start-sit decisions, make adjustments as if you were in the fight, even if you are out of the playoffs. Okay. Many of you might be defeated right now. Consider that these last couple weeks. Maybe you're like, I want to ruin somebody else's chances. That's great motivation too. But with that being said, Alex, how many leagues are you in the playoffs?
I have been vocal about going for a very diversified portfolio.
Yeah.
We've gone over this, and that's how I do it in real life. And so I've got six leagues total.
Okay. That's a lot,
Two of them, stud teams, just everything's worked.
Okay.
I had great draft picks, all the waiver gems. Like, I'm just crushing it in two of them. And then the other two are good, we'll see. They're like right on that cusp, like, in this next week or two, depending on if it's a 6-man or 5-man playoff. But it's make or break time. But I could possibly have up to 4 teams in the playoffs. But 2 of them are a little suspect. Gotcha. We'll see. And then two of them are just crash and burn. They actually there were 2 of my better teams at the with 3 weeks in, and they're just like, Justin Fields, Genty, Lamar, Saquon, like all these studs just like completely crash and burn for me. So, overall, the diversified portfolio worked, Josh. You get some wins, but, you get some stinkers. What about you?
I'm the opposite. Yeah. I mean, I go all in on the guys that I like. I was adamant about Trey McBride. I drafted him in every single league that I was in because of how strong I felt about it. Granted, that leads you to potentially doing well or just completely terrible in all your teams. But for me, I try to play in only 2 leagues a season. This year we picked up a third because it was a dynasty league, which, is adding to the fun. Right now I have a locked in first round bye in one league, another one I'm fighting for a first round bye, and then the other one I'm locked in for a playoffs. I'm sitting pretty good this year. I feel like
once Kyle got benched, your McBride stock shot up a lot.
Yeah,
not
sure.
benched, but once Kyler went down with injury, not benched. But.
Yeah. I mean, that was huge. I mean, we talked about how McBride was still involved. I think they were passing like 150 yards a game on average, and they were 30th in the NFL. He was seeing opportunities; they just weren't passing the ball. And then second that shifted, he started to see that juice.
Slinging it.
Yeah, slinging it. He's been QB1 for multiple weeks now, which we talked about last episode. And JSN Jersey giveaway, quick plug, subscribe, and comment. You're entered for that JSN jersey giveaway. We're only a couple weeks away. Yeah, we are very close. We're giving somebody a signed autographed JSN jersey. Do not forget to do that. Now, we talked about last week, Jonathan Taylor update. He ended up putting up 13.6 points in half PPR, which was running back 19 on the week. Now giving him 21 total points through 3 weeks. This makes him running back 36 during that time since I said to trade him during his bye.
Just classic Josh, warping the statistics to fit his narrative. You gotta get credit for the bench player that you were started in that, because one of those was a bye week. You can't bring him down because he had a bye week in there. If you put a modest 10 points in there, he'd be at to simulate whoever the bench player would have been. We're looking at 31 total, which is pretty nice. Not that bad. I mean, he had 121 all-purpose yards, 26 opportunities. You're not upset about that game. Sure, he's going to get a touchdown, but that's going to happen.
Yeah, he was on the field for 98% of the offensive snaps, which that was the highest all year for him, which is just insane. Yeah. I will say, I do think 10 points is generous in half PPR for a running back position too. And consider what you had to trade away to get JT at that time, right? We're talking peak value, CMC, Achane were the people I talked about. But you talked about playoffs too. Yes, if you're a JT owner, that's probably the most important. You're probably sitting pretty right now, playoff wise. So I agree that that's probably the most important thing that you need to worry about from JT. And also, Danny Dimes' mobility. It's pretty much shot with that broken fibula, right? He was taking rushing yards.
Yeah.
But when we talk about ground game, it's going to be JT and only JT. You know, you got some benefit there as far as
due
more
for
usage.
a 3-touchdown game again. You know, he's not done.
Sure.
He's not done.
Yeah. No, I agree. Yeah. Still elite player, but hey, is looking all right if you were to do it. All right. So last week we did the unlikely smash starts, and that was the first time we did that. It's kind of fun. We're going to keep it rolling, and we're going to probably do this every week. Some guys, last week we mentioned Harold Fannin Jr., Adonai Mitchell. Fannin went for 10.5 PPR points, which was tight end 10, which is fantastic. Yep. And Mitchell went for 20 half PPR points, which is wide receiver 6. This week, who do you like, Alex?
All right, well, my smash start, it's almost more just a must add in waivers. This is a guy only owned in 55% of leagues. Completely disrespectful. Not only is he a smash start this week, he is a smash rest of season play. I'm speaking of the great Chris Godwin. Only 3 catches for 78 this week, but he also did have a touchdown slip right out of his hands. I don't know why he dropped it. He's got such reliable hands. That really bummed me out.
But I remember watching it,
Yeah, could have been an even bigger day. However, it's like how quickly we forget. Through the first 7 weeks last season, Godwin was wide receiver 2 in half PPR. He's had some injuries. He had to shake off a little rust here, but he's back. He's coming back. I see him providing consistent value, and I think he finds the end zone this week against the Saints. Divisional game. They know him well. His average score of his last 6 regular season games against the Saints is 17.2. Go start, my boy.
I don't want to poo-poo on your pick, but the Saints have the number 1 defense against slot wide receivers, only allowing 6.7 points a game. Godwin ran 60% of his routes out of this. We talk about talent, overtaking, matchup. I'm sure he might still find value. And yeah, you're right. Godwin might be slated for just insane usage. And this might be your fandom coming through a little bit, okay?
Maybe.
Bay,
listen, it's the Saints. Their defense is trash. They don't give up points to the slot receiver because they're giving deep bombs early, and then the other teams are just running the ball the whole second half. All right, who you got?
Yeah, for me, I'm doing this for a little bit of a shock factor. I'm expected to be burned, but for whatever reason, me and Alex are in a couple leagues, and last week, I just see it happen all the times. Alex just likes to roster Titans players out of nowhere. And I'm always like, what are you doing? Because my number one rule since week 3 has been do not start or roster Titan players. For me, they bring 0 upside. It's really just making fantasy so much harder than it has to me. But this week, if you want to start a Titans player, I will allow you to plug one in. Yes. Chimere Dike at wide receiver. Okay. This could be a guy that you could start as a smash start. That's the one I'm actually picking right now. I will not be starting him because of my number 1 rule, but people try to crack the code on the Titans. And I think this week I'm going to crack that code. The reason why I like him so much is because Cleveland plays number 2 in the NFL man coverage at 40% rate and number 1 at 2 high coverages over the past 8 weeks. Dike has been number 1 on the Titans, being targeted 30% of his routes versus man coverage with a massive 2.97 yards per route run. He is also number 3 best on the team versus 2 high coverages. Now, he is still on the Titans, so touchdown upside is almost non-existent. Vegas posted their over-under for this week for 34 points, which is the worst in the entire week by 6 total points on entire touchdown. Which is insane. Their offense stinks. I will consider this a win if he breaks 10 fantasy points in half PPR this week. And if you guys are betting people, second his prop bet drops, which I expected to be like 20 to 25 yards. Personally, I'm going in on the receiving yard bet for this week. I like Dike as a guy. He
only had 1 catch for 8 yards last week, so that's a pretty
he did
pretty spicy take right there.
Just like Adonai Mitchell, man, it was a spicy one, and I'm going swinging full force there. Well, we're moving over to the data segment where I just give some data, some important need-to-know information based off last week or what we've seen over the past couple weeks. First up is Chuba Hubbard. He essentially outsnapped Rico Dowdle 38-27 and saw 19 opportunities to Rico's 20. This looks like a hot hand approach moving forward, and maybe Rico hasn't secured that backfield as we originally thought. he had.
Plus, they're on a bye this week. Yeah, so you're not going to get to play either of them until the playoffs. I don't think you can trust either of them in the playoffs just because
it's worrisome.
I guess they're both going to get double-digit touches, but you're not feeling good about it either way.
Yeah, and whoever ends up with that hot hand, again, I'm still betting on Rico, but Chuba looked very good in that game from what I saw in those opportunities. Rhamondre Stevenson. Last week we talked about Henderson and Stevenson, but Stevenson was the starter on the first drive. He came in as the starting running back. He saw 15 opportunities to 38 snaps. Henderson saw 14 opportunities on 32 snaps. The good news is that they both saw a goal line opportunity, but Terrell Jennings did leave the game early due to concussion. New England has a solid running back schedule moving forward on a high-powered offense. I think both players bring value in some way, but if you're a fantasy manager and either of these guys, you just got to be super frustrated, especially with Henderson. He just looks so much more explosive. Like every time he touched the ball, he was just so much better. So it's worrisome with that split backfield.
Way better. It seemed like the second half he was starting to get a lot more action in the second half. But then they also have a bye this week.
They were already ahead, right? They were ahead by 16, 15 points, so
but he's still looking great.
He looked amazing, but we've seen that all year. He's clearly been the most explosive back, so I'm sure he'll find value against matchups. It's just not running back one upside that we hoped and wanted this past week. Jakobi Meyers' offensive snaps since joining the Jags has increased weekly. Last week, he played 92% of the offensive snaps and ran 9 more routes and played 3 more snaps than Brian Thomas Jr. This might have been because BTJ was coming off of an injury. Parker Washington left the game in the second quarter. From that point forward, BTJ saw 41% of the slot opportunities to Meyers 30%. I think this is just a monitor situation, but BTJ might not even be the top target or maybe even top 2 targets. Like Strange was also very involved. So
Strange had a nice game.
Option 3 right now. I don't know. As a BTJ owner, I'm probably holding him one more week, but if we see this continue, I'm dropping him. Honestly,
Jakobi still only had only 6 targets is nice, but nothing crazy. But he did bring in all 6, which is lovely. When they traded for him, they were trying to get someone with hands. Everyone just kept dropping balls in Jacksonville. So they're just getting Chilaw's getting some confidence in him, and we'll see if he can if he starts getting double-digit targets, then Jakobi's got to be in.
Oh, that'd be crazy. Start. Yeah, for sure. Over the past 3 weeks, Devaughn Vele has seen 90% of the offensive snap. That was right after the Shaheed trade. Until last week, he has still been option number 3 in first read target share and team target share. But Olave has had some injuries lingering. If he misses any time, maybe we end up seeing an Olave type of situation where he just gets peppered with 9 to 10 targets a game. And from a wide receiver standpoint, that's flex territory. I don't care what team you're on. If you're seeing 10 targets that are somewhat catchable, you usually are making something out of them, unless you are a Minnesota wide receiver.
Yeah, and hard to trust any Saints player, really. But, Tampa defense, unfortunately, Carolina, Tennessee down the stretch. They got, a decent schedule down the stretch.
Got some matchups. George Kittle, my boy, appeared to be wide receiver 1 on the Niners. He's commanding 24% team target share since Purdy has returned. So he looks like the clear go-to guy for Purdy moving forward and that offense, which is good to see if you're a Kittle owner.
It was also a really, really windy day in Cleveland. So I know they were kind of talking about that before the game. So I just don't know if they were really trying to push it outside and deep very much. I think it kind of was a juicy situation for him.
Breece Hall, he played 89% of the offensive snaps, which was the highest on the year, and he saw 100% of the running back opportunities, which is just insane. His third down and 2-minute drill usage has increased significantly, but they barely threw him the ball. He was out there for almost all the snaps. It was not Isaiah anymore, but they didn't get him the ball almost at all. If this sticks, even with tough matchups coming up in the playoffs, I think he just brings fantasy managers value, running back 2, maybe upside. If that offense gets moving, especially with more passing down work, if he sees it moving forward. But, it's still the Jets. So that's good news for him.
Breece can just never get the whole package. Every game there's something missing, something, some handcuffs sliding in there, some issue.
They actually interviewed him and they talked to him after the game, and he was like, yeah, I knew I was out there to be a decoy for a lot of the plays. And I was like, oh, okay. He knew going in that he was going to be a decoy, maybe in the passing down work. It'll be interesting to see how that goes moving forward. But as a Breece owner, I hope he gets more opportunities with those on-field snaps. Devin Neal, he was the #1 waiver ad, I believe it was last week after Kamara went down. The good news is that he played 81% of the offensive running back snaps, and he played 100% third down, 2-minute drill, goal line, and short yardage snaps. Really all-encompassing for him, which is awesome. I think if this usage continues, solid matchups for running backs coming up. I'm just not giving up on him just yet. He's still on the Saints. We've talked about Saints running backs, which is not great, but I still think you get a free low-end running back too, maybe flex based off this usage, which from a waiver wire ad late in the season, maybe you need it to help you give over that. Just don't give up yet.
Bucks this week, 6th fewest rushing yards given up. So it's like the one thing we're good at. If you want to pass the ball on us, you absolutely can, but we don't give up a lot of yards on the ground. So
gotcha. Justin Jefferson, man, he recorded 2 receptions for 4 yards. Last week we talked about this and we were like, no way it can get worse. It got worse. Give me JJ McCarthy, please, dear Lord. This was his worst statistical performance in his entire career over an 89 games played. His performance cost me to lose my fantasy matchup this week by 1 point. It infuriates me. It makes me so mad because literally it was 89 games and he was like, you know what? The game you need 1 point, I'm getting you 2.4 and having my worst performance in history. So I hate it.
At least I was in a full PPR league. I mean, good Lord.
I know, God.
He's going to be so demoralized. I don't know. Can you trust him anymore? Can you even flex him anymore?
Yes, okay. I am starting him. I moved in my wide receiver 2 slot because he's pissing me off.
You're getting demoted.
But at some point, their matchups are so good. They're playing Dallas, I think, in week 15. Like, there's no way that you can bench Justin Jefferson against Dallas, even with McCarthy throwing like a 60% catchable ball rate, which is probably one of the worst in the NFL. It just has to get better. It cannot be this bad. It just can't. He can't be Jamarcus Russell bad. It's just not possible. Dude. I don't believe it. We'll see, though.
He's got to bust out the 9. Switching over to main talking points, we'll dive a little bit deeper into some of this stuff. Josh, the Colts have 4 viable offensive weapons, pass-catching weapons, not even JT. 4 pass catchers, Tyler Warren, Alec Pierce, Michael Pittman, and Josh Downs. It makes it very difficult to predict who will find success any given Sunday. Josh, do you have an answer for us?
All right. So in all honesty, I made Alex ask me this question. The reason why is because I need to drop some knowledge on you all about these players. Full transparency. This was brought to my attention by reading some things online, but I did a deep dive on the data. I created the chart I'm about to show you all based on the most recent information we have. If you are listening on Spotify or another platform, I encourage you, check out this section on YouTube, because I have some visuals and I honestly believe it's well worth it. Now, Alex, I know you're going to have a lot of questions about this, but let me kind of explain it first and talk through it before we jump into the question.
Oh, okay.
All right. So what we have here is a chart that shows us the 4 players: Michael Pittman, Tyler Warren, Alec Pierce, and Josh Downs. And it goes over the number of routes that they have run, and then it looks at 1 high safety looks by defenses, 2 high safety looks by defenses, zone coverage, as well as man coverage. And within each of those brackets, we have targets per route run, yards per route run, and fantasy points per route run. And each 1 high, 2 high, zone, and man has that breakdown. Essentially, what I did is I went through each of these 4 players and I identified, based off of the defensive look that they see and they get, how productive and how targeted are these fantasy receivers based on the type of defense that they are seeing. Okay. And if you look at this, like as you're looking at this, it kind of tells a pretty clear story about who gets targeted when in what type of matchups. As we look at the 1 high safety looks, teams that play a lot of 1 high safety, Michael Pittman has only 0.2, targets per out run. Yards per out run is 1.3. But if we look at Tyler Warren and Alec Pierce, Tyler Warren, 0.22 yards per or target per out run, 2.52 yards per out run. Alec Pierce, almost over 3 yards per out run, targeted 27% of the routes that he runs. Fantasy points is in the 0.5s per route run. If you're playing a team that plays a lot of 1 high safety, Tyler Warren and Alec Pierce look like smash starts. We go over the 2 high safety. Michael Pittman and Josh Downs seem to be the one to benefit mostly from 2 high safety looks in this defense. Tyler Warren has played plenty well. It's not like he's playing poorly, but those two seem to dominate. And then Alex Pierce is almost non-existent in 2 high safety looks. Then we roll over to zone coverage. Tyler Warren is just smashing zone coverage. He seems to be their main guy. Alec Pierce also, with the opportunities he sees, has done phenomenal, but he hasn't gotten as many opportunities throughout the year against zone. But if he gets those opportunities, then he ends up smashing. And last week we saw that. Houston plays a lot of one high safety, and they play a lot of zone coverage. We got the opportunities that he needed to see to make that production. And then versus man, we see that Tyler Warren does not play well against man. He's one of the worst. Josh Downs, one of the worst. And then Alec Pierce is just a stud against man coverage as well.
Yeah, it kind of makes sense because, Alec Pierce is kind of like their deep threat, take the top off kind of guys. Obviously in a man plus 1 high situation, there's going to be a lot more opportunity for him to pop one deep. Just kind of curious on how those two would kind of combo, like a 1 high zone versus a 1 high man and just stuff like that, breaking it down into cross breeds, but very interesting. Coverages. Yeah, well, just the combinations of the two, is it 1 high man or 1 high zone, 1 high or 2 high zone, 2 high man, I don't know. Just and then what happens? I don't know. Obviously, that's even more data you got to look up and whatnot. But very interesting. Obviously, it kind of helps. It helps if you. It almost makes sense to have one of each of them on your team that does like the opposite, and then start them. Like have Tyler Warren and Pittman, but then
Michael Pittman.
What they're playing is kind of counter it, but.
Yeah. And, Josh Downs, it's tough. He just doesn't see as many snaps as the other guys. He's not on the field as consistently just because of, 3 wide receiver sets in those slot positions, which is why those routes are a little bit lower. But you got to kind of take that with a grain of salt. Even though he's great against 2 high safety and one of the best on this team, he might not see as many opportunities because not on the field as consistently. So,
Downs had a nice little stretch there in the middle where he was pretty solid, and then he's just really cooled off and done nothing. And I'm thinking about dropping him. I think I might have to. I mean, he just hasn't done anything for 4 weeks, but for a while there in the middle, he was pretty solid.
All right, cool. Well, I just wanted to share that. I thought that was interesting data to show. And if you're making decisions and, just kind of check out those defenses, who they're playing and what might be most valuable for them.
I mean, Warren's probably one of those guys where if you made it this far with Warren, he's probably just your locked in tight end.
Right.
And then Pittman might also be locked in. But a guy like Alec Pierce for sure. And then if you still had Downs, maybe you could throw him out there.
Based on matchups, but Toyotathon has officially started, and you all are probably wondering, why are we talking about Toyotathon? It's because Jordan Love just threw for 230 yards and 4 touchdowns. And this is an amazing data point. During Toyotathon, which starts typically in late November, in his career, Jordan Love has a 13-5 record. He has 32 touchdowns, including this past week, to 2 interceptions. Is Jordan Love worth rostering as a backup or potential starting QB if needed or desperate? What are you feeling about
First off, how long is Toyotathon? Is it just December? Is it just through
the
Christmas
end of the year?
or something
No.
through the end of the year?
Okay. Through the end of the year, yeah. So I think it's January 2nd. Maybe. Yeah, it's around the 19th to 23rd, I think, is when it typically starts. And so then
just before Thanksgiving and then to the end of the new year. Go ahead and get yourself in a brand new Toyota. But switching back to Jordan Love, I mean, absolutely. I actually really like Love's value coming down the stretch. I mean, he's QB 14 on the season, so it's not like he's been abysmal. This is crazy out of left field. But the Packers wide receiver room is finally getting healthy again. Watson's back. Reed and Golden possibly back this week or maybe next week. Who knows? I mean, his schedule is great. You got to avoid the Broncos defense possibly in week 15. But other than that, he gets the Bears twice and the Ravens. Both defenses are giving up huge numbers to opposing QBs. So, yeah, I think there's a great value with Jordan Love. Another guy I'm kind of liking his value out of nowhere. Maybe this is more out of left field maybe than Jordan Love is Terry McLaurin. It's had been one of my bigger disappointments this year. Got injured week 3, came back, got re-injured immediately, left for some more weeks, and now in his first game back with Marcus Mariota under center, just commands a insane 14 targets. He hasn't had 14 targets since 2021, Josh. Every game is crucial at this time of year. I mean, we don't know yet about Jayden Daniels, but Josh, would you trust Scary Terry against a Vikings defense that's given up the 5th fewest passing yards this season?
I'll be honest. I hate start-sit questions. There's just so much insane variance in outcomes, game script, injuries, everything else that goes into playing a football game. It's just so unpredictable. And it also depends on your fantasy team and who you're playing that week and what you feel you need out of the position and your scoring and just on and on. I just want to say that I don't. That's one of the things that we do that I really just dislike. But
this is crunch time. This is like literally people need to win this game to make the playoffs possibly.
Important.
So this is like this isn't like trade value up or down or whatever,
So what I will say about the situation, so Terry's first week back, he saw 27% first read target share, 28% team target share. He also had 30-yard touchdown, I think it was, called back. He's going up against Byron Murphy Jr. and Isaiah Rodgers. They're the cornerbacks who should be matched up against him most of the game. They're allowing around 11 yards per reception, which is about 53rd out of 121 designated quarterbacks. If someone was to find value for the game in the receiving game, the data says Terry would be the one. However, you've been dealing without Terry all year. So, I mean, if you have an option that looks better than him, don't be afraid to make that decision to start him again. This is where it's kind of team dependent. Minnesota has just been so good. They've just been very good. But on a larger perspective, I am just surprised on how well he played. He didn't appear to be impacted by the injury almost at all. The entire offense looked completely different with him in that rotation. I think Terry honestly might win people some leagues if his usage continues and his health stays consistent. Washington gets the Giants, Dallas in the fantasy playoffs. Both of them are number 1 and number 6 for wide receivers in fantasy scoring. They also have Philly, who's like, they've been middle of the pack versus wide receivers, but going against Quentin Mitchell is
than they
are
always good.
Yeah, and their cornerback, Quentin Mitchell is just elite, but he did just beat Patrick Surtain, who shadowed him most of the game. He was also returning from injury in that situation, so take that with a grain of salt, but so is Terry. If you have been able to weather the storm through this point with Terry, and he stays healthy, you might be heavily rewarded when it matters most in those playoff games when you need him the most. My answer is, if you need him, go for it.
I was going to say, I'm excited. I had him on my IR this pretty much entire season, and I was putting in Troy Franklin there for the last couple of weeks, but he put up a stinker for me this week, so he's getting demoted. Scary Terry's going in. I'll report back later. We'll see how it goes.
Yeah, see, so that's where the matchup is important, because last week Pat Bryant ended up seeing more opportunities in the passing game, the receiving game, and that's why Franklin was much less involved. Yes, Peyton talked about Pat Bryant being equivalent to, who was he talking about? Equivalent to some stud wide receiver, but he just does whatever he wants whenever he wants, and he doesn't let anybody know.
Yeah, Champagne sucks.
Yeah, he's not great for fantasy, that's for sure, because you never know what he's going to do. Aaron Rodgers, he hasn't thrown for over 200 yards in the past 3 weeks, and the team on the offensive side of the ball seems to be falling apart. How do you think this impacts pass catchers, running backs moving forward? What are you feeling about these guys?
He had a crazy bloody nose. Did you see that? That was pretty nuts. And they still kept playing it.
Yeah,
I was go ahead and get out there. But he's got to be so over it. He's got to retire at the end of this year. He's got to be like, what am I doing out here? I'm too old. I'm too old for this. Yeah. I mean, Ravens and Dolphins the next 2 weeks should hopefully allow for some decent performances. We'll see. But this is just an uninspiring offense. I mean, Jaylen Warren hasn't had more than 60 rushing yards since week 7. And, well, it's a total wild card in full PPR. I mean, sometimes he does get you a gem, but you can't rely on him. Metcalf has under 50 yards for 5 straight. They got like a 3-headed rotation at tight end, Freiermuth, Smith, Washington. They're all only getting about 50% of snaps. Nothing to get excited about. Moral of the story, I would avoid any Steeler if I could. But again, this is the last week of buys. So, I mean, if you're desperate for a flex, maybe a little Metcalf or Warren kind of situation and hope for the best. I switch over to other quarterbacks that are also kind of faltering a little bit. Justin Herbert, he had surgery to fix a fractured bone in his non-throwing hand. That's bad. That's bad news. He's also scored outside QB 15 in every game since the standout tackle Joe Alt got injured. That's also bad. Now he's also got Philly, Kansas City, and Houston still on his fantasy schedule. That's really bad. Josh, is Herbert still a locked-in QB1 for you down the stretch?
All right, so before I get into Herbert, almost exactly a month ago, I talked about the Joe Alt injury and the impact it would have on the wide receiver core. I didn't talk about Herbert. I didn't think it would be this significant, but I want to address that because I did say QJ, Quinn Johnson, would be left out because of the time to pressure, and Herbert would not be throwing the ball as deep. Well, literally after I said that and after that game, how they used QJ completely changed. It just was 100% different. His ADOT was 12.9, which was leading the Chargers offense. And then since that injury, his ADOT has been the lowest of the three pass catchers at 7.8 yards. And he only has 108 air yards, which is, again, the lowest on that team. But you asked about Herbert. So the answer is no. He isn't a QB you can just plug in and forget about anymore. I think he's a matchup QB, just like every other middle range guy that you're looking at. Like you said, hasn't scored more than 50 fantasy points since All's been injured. No, they're not good. Prior to that injury, they were averaging 4 deep balls a game and around 270 passing yards. Since the injury, the team is averaging 2 deep balls a game and 140 passing yards. You might need to double check me on that stat. But through the first 9 weeks of the season, the Chargers' pass rate over expected was number 3 in the NFL at 6.8%. They were passing the ball at a high rate. After that, they have been number 15 with a negative 1% pass rate over expected. The Chargers defense has also been one of the best in the league against the passing game. They are 31 to 32 against QBs in fantasy scoring, 32 out of 32 against wide receivers. Amazing defenses can hurt good offenses. We saw that with the Chiefs in 2024. Now, week 14 is the first week the Chargers haven't been favored since week 1, if you can believe that. I don't think I would start him coming off of his surgery versus Philly, which could impact him also negatively and down the stretch. They also aren't favored against Kansas City in week 15. I think, yes, it's a bad matchup on paper from a QB's perspective, but I would imagine the point total for this game is probably going to be very high. It should be a heavy passing attack. I'd imagine on both sides, a lot of points scored. Yeah. So, we'll have to see, but right now, maybe that could be considered of a matchup. Week 16 against Dallas, that's viable, right? Number 1 fantasy points allowed opposing quarterbacks, Kansas City in week 15. And week 16 against Houston, absolutely not. I'd probably drop him at that point and hope one of my competitors picked him up to play against Houston. I'm going to be honest. So, yeah, no thank you. I'm not starting against Houston. Matchup dependent quarterback. I'm looking elsewhere and not confident. Imagine the injury. You had surgery. I can't imagine he's going to be better next week right after. So, yeah.
I mean, like it's in the non-throwing, it's really going to come down to how useful he is. Is he going to be able to take snaps under center, or do they do only shotgun? Yeah. Is it what's the mobility in that just for taking snaps and just the non-throwing stuff that you need to do sometimes?
For sure. And I know it's not throwing him, but injuries are still injuries. You're thinking about them, you get hit, it's a contact
out
sport.
Of it.
So,
God, stick a stinger. Sure. All right, Josh, everyone's been complaining, i.e. me, have been complaining about J-Mo.
A lot of people,
with
just you.
Numerous 0-point performances this season or just really low single-digit performances. How do you feel about J-Mo, though, in a situation moving forward with a possible sun god Amon-Ra St. Brown injury?
Not just you, everybody. I've seen it all over Reddit, Twitter, pretty much all the platforms.
It's just so boomer buzz. It's insane.
Sleeper, underdog, ESPN, they're all making fun of it and talking about it. Jameson Williams, he was drafted as a wide receiver 3. And over the past 7 weeks, this is what it's looked like. If you just started him and plugged him in and were like, you know what? I'm going to take the good with the bad. Over the past 7 weeks, he ended up having a 57% chance of finishing as a wide receiver 1 for the week, 71% chance of finishing as a wide receiver 2 or better, and a 29% chance to get you 0 points. So if I had J-Mo, I would start him over any other wide receiver 3 who's given me 5 to 15 points a game. Give me the upside. Give me the juice. You get a 0. You deal with it. That's my opinion. But as far as Amon-Ra St. Brown, if he misses any time, J-Mo obviously seems like the clear benefactor in that situation. But Amon-Ra is a tough dude. He very, very rarely misses time. But if it isn't anything major, I see him figuring out a way to play through it. Honestly, less about J-Mo, but this could be a great opportunity for Isaac Tesla. We talked about him being the wide receiver handcuff many, many moons ago. If Brown doesn't play, right? Remember that?
This is the time for the wide receiver handcuff. It's come to fruition.
This could be his moment. He played 92% of the offensive snaps after after Amon-Ra went out. Now, it's always tough to determine. We see this happen mid-game and coaches make adjustments, but then they have a full week of practice and they implement a game plan and they go away from what we saw middle of the game because they were just making adjustments. So it's hard to predict those types of things. But if he's on the field, they're playing against the Cowboys, which we just talked about. If there were an opportunity for Tesla to just boom and have a big game, it would be against Cowboys. He would just need to see the targets. I don't know if that connection is strong enough yet with Goff, but you're on the field. You're in a very pass-heavy game script game, potentially. You're going to have a shootout, score a lot of points. This could be a sneaky ad for this week if you don't have anybody flex territory worthy.
Someone's scoring on that offense this week against Dallas. Somebody's scoring a lot. It just matters who's it going to be.
I'll have to look at the lines. It'll be interesting to see what the touchdown lines are. I forget what game was it last week. I think it was who were the Cowboys playing last week?
Well, they were on Thanksgiving and they beat Kansas City.
Oh, yeah, they were playing Chiefs, yeah. So the touchdown odds for that game, when I was looking at it, I want to say 4 players had negative odds, and then 3 players had very slight positive odds. So there was 7 different players that had anytime touchdown odds that were insanely, good. So it was just funny to see. I wonder if likely. I wonder if this game will be like that, where everybody has a potential
Dallas
touchdown
versus
odd
Detroit,
at that point, right?
It's got to be a the over-under is going to be 70?
Yeah, it's going to be insane. We'll have to look at those odds, check those out.
I hope.
You pick anybody on that
Sometimes
these
games you get hyped up for, and then it's the complete opposite. You're like, what the?
It is.
And
that's that variance, right? We don't know. The odds say that anybody on that team is going to be scoring a touchdown. Maybe even one of the wide receivers we didn't talk about. All right, well, that's all we have for you this week. The playoffs are, again, right around the corner. Remember, it's about the process, not about the outcome. Even if you are out of it, stay tuned so you can steal a championship maybe next year. Yes, go down swinging, and we'll catch you all next time. Later.
Peace.